Welcome to IFA. I fix everything.
Today's project is to repair the rear power window motor on this 1994 Ford Bronco. When you turn the key to raise the window, it drags. It needs assistance getting it over the hump. I have over 6 hours of video footage removing and repairing this rear tailgate and its many afflictions. If you'd like more information, please leave a comment below. This video is simply going to focus on the rear window motor and its interaction with the regulator. The window regulator is equipped with a powerful spring to help the motor raise the heavy window. To prevent injury, the lifting arms must be secured prior to removing the motor to prevent spring back. I used a cargo strap. Whatever method you use, be sure to test the regulator arms for spring back prior to removing the motor. The motor appears to run fine in a no-load condition. I began the disassembly and inspection by removing the Torx head screws from the gear train. The drive gear appears to be in good condition, but the lubrication has deteriorated with its age. Water has infiltrated the drive housing. This could affect the motor's performance. Next, I'm removing the motor housing. The housing needed some special attention. It hadn't been removed in nearly 3 decades. This is the first glimpse of the armature, and the motor shows no signs of damage. I removed the motor armature with an unthreading motion to prevent scoring of the bushings. I placed the motor armature into the keyless chuck of my shopsmith. You could use a drill press or even a hand drill if that's all that you have available. I burnished the commutator with a wire brush to remove the embedded deposits left behind from the brushes. The wire brush was also used to clean the screw threads on the main shaft. I'm using Scotch-Brite to polish the main shaft, paying special attention to the bushing areas to remove any ridges and deposits. Soft carbon brushes begin life with a flat surface, but as they wear, they form a contour that matches the commutator. When brushes are rejuvenated, they are filed flat. This removes excess material and the brushes begin the break-in process all over again. I'm using a sanding drum on a Dremel tool to rejuvenate the brushes. This will allow me to retain the original profile and remove the minimal amount of material, which will increase the life of the brushes. I cleaned the motor housing and the gear train with engine degreaser. I used Lennox cutting oil as a lubricant to polish the bushings using the main shaft. The main shaft is polished and ready for service. The bushings have been burnished by the main shaft and now slide smoothly without the screw motion needed to remove it. The infiltrated water has left corrosion and deposits on the bearing surfaces of the gear housing. The center pin has 2 bearing surfaces, the outer rim and the lower flat land. I'm going to polish both surfaces so the motor operates more efficiently. I began by polishing the radial surfaces with a circular wire brush at low speed. Then I switched to a cut brush, paying particular attention to the circular bearing surface around the center pin. Lastly, I cleaned the outer mating surface with the cut brush to prevent future water intrusion. I washed and dried the parts to remove any residual materials left behind from the polishing process. I partially filled the gear housing with lubricant. I installed the gear cover and pressed it firmly in place. I removed the gear cover and filled any air gaps with lubricant and reinstalled the gear cover. This will ensure the housing is full and leaves no room for water infiltration. This grease packing method filled both lower bushings with white lithium grease. I lubricated the upper bushing with high temperature synthetic grease because it does not have a reservoir to replenish the bushing. As I installed the main shaft into the gear housing, the screw threads engaged the main gear. I rotated the main shaft and this in turn pulled the main shaft into the lower bushing. I found it's easier to install the brush holder with the brushes removed. Install the brushes one at a time. First the brush, then the spring, then snap the plastic retainer into position. Test the rotation of the armature, then install the housing and insert the 4 screws. I do not have the torque specifications for the screws. but the torque sequence is to tighten the screws diagonally to ensure they seat properly. I also tightened the gear cover in the same crisscross pattern. I tested the motor operation in both directions using a remote starter switch and a lawnmower battery. Prior to installing the motor on the regulator, I lubricated the bushing and the drive gear with synthetic grease. I let gravity hold the motor in place as I started the 3 mount bolts. Be sure the motor is tightened securely prior to re-engaging the spring tension on the regulator. I removed the strap and retested the motor while it was installed on the regulator. After removing the rust and re-lubricating the gears, the power windows operated smoother and quieter. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a few things along the way. If you did, please like and share. Remember, subscribers are always welcome.